The council chamber floated in the middle of space like a silent jewel. Its walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Outside, stars burned quietly, unaware of the storm about to begin. Inside, the most powerful beings of the galaxy had gathered. Tall, short, scaled, feathered. Leaders from 100 worlds sat in a great circle, each in their own seat shaped for their species. The air was heavy with the scent of alien flowers, a tradition to keep tempers calm. But tonight, no scent could calm what was coming. At the center of the chamber stood the High Speaker, an ancient alien whose silver skin shimmered under the lights. His eyes, dark and deep, had seen centuries of politics, war, and peace. But as he looked at the small metal box in front of him, his long fingers trembled. "This," he said in a voice that carried across the hall, "came from the scout ship Veil Runner. They were exploring the ruins on the dead moon of Varel 9. They found this message." The metal box clicked open with a soft hiss. A thin crystal chip floated into the air and projected a stream of golden light. The image of an old alien script spun slowly in the middle of the circle. At first, no one moved. The letters were strange, sharp lines, curling edges, symbols that seemed to twist when you looked at them for too long. Even those who could read thousands of languages felt a strange unease. The High Speaker took a deep breath. "We have translated it. The words are not just words. They are a name." "A name?" asked Counselor Jarek, a tall reptilian with eyes like molten gold. "Why summon us in secret for a name?" The High Speaker's voice dropped lower. "Because it is Earth's true name." Silence fell like a heavy blanket over the chamber. A faint hum from the crystal walls was the only sound. Some council members shifted in their seats. Others stared at the projection, as if it might leap out and strike them. "Earth?" whispered Counselor Errol, a being of soft light whose form flickered nervously. "The human home world?" "Yes," said the High Speaker. "The humans do not know it themselves, but this name is older than any human record, older than the Council itself." In the far corner, the archivist of Myra, a hunched figure wrapped in shadowed robes, leaned forward. His voice was rough, like wind scraping over stone. "Do not speak it here." Counselor Jarek snorted. "Old superstition. Words are only sounds." The archivist's hood turned toward him. "Not this word. This word is a key. Speak it, and they will remember." The chamber's glow seemed to dim. Counselor Lyra, the youngest of them all, tilted her head. She had only served for 5 years and still carried the restless curiosity of youth. "Remember what?" The archivist did not answer. His silence was more frightening than any reply. The High Speaker looked around the circle. "You all know the human record, a young species, aggressive, resourceful. In only a few hundred years, they went from discovering flight to touching the stars. But before their history began, before they even walked upright, they were something else." He touched the crystal chip. A second image appeared. A painting on ancient stone, faded and cracked. It showed humans in strange armor, standing over fallen alien armies. Above them, carved in the same strange script, was the name. Counselor Lyra leaned forward, her eyes wide. "What does it mean?" "No one knows," the High Speaker admitted. "The last time it was spoken aloud, the galaxy changed. It was during the First War. Civilizations burned. Fleets vanished. The records say the name was erased for the safety of all." Lyra's voice was soft. "Erased, but not forgotten." The archivist's hood dipped in a slow nod. Then it happened. Lyra, unable to fight her curiosity, whispered the name. It was barely a breath, barely a sound, but it carried through the still air like a spark in dry grass. The chamber lights flickered. A deep vibration rolled through the floor, like something massive moving far below. Counselors looked around in alarm. The glowing walls of the chamber darkened to black, reflecting only the frightened faces within. The High Speaker's eyes widened. "What have you done?" I just wanted to know," Lyra began, but her voice was drowned out by a low, distant hum. It was not mechanical, it was alive. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, a sound that touched the bones and made hearts beat faster. The archivist rose slowly to his feet. His robes fell away, revealing a scarred body covered in faded symbols. "It has heard you," he said, his voice heavy with finality. "Now, it is awake." Counselor Jarek's golden eyes narrowed. "What is awake?" But before the archivist could answer, the crystal walls lit up again, not with light, but with images, stars, fleets, shadows of ships so massive they dwarfed moons, moving, coming closer. The High Speaker slammed his hand onto the control panel. "Seal the chamber! No one leaves until we understand this!" Guards in shining armor stepped forward, their weapons humming with energy. The great doors at the far end slid shut with a final, echoing thud. Outside, in the cold emptiness of space, something stirred. Something that had slept for thousands of years, and it had just heard its name. The chamber remained locked in silence after the doors sealed. The faint hum from the walls continued, like the pulse of some enormous heart hidden in the dark. Every council member could feel it deep inside their bones. A vibration that would not stop. Lyra sat frozen in her seat, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. She had not meant for anyone to hear her, but the name had slipped out like a secret, desperate to be free. Now it was too late. The High Speaker's voice was sharp and cold as he faced her. "You have no idea what you have done." His gaze swept across the circle, warning the others not to follow her mistake. But curiosity was a disease that spread quickly, and the way some council members leaned forward told him the sickness was already growing. The archivist of Myra stepped into the center, his long shadow stretching across the floor. His voice was heavy, each word a stone. That name was locked away in the oldest archives, forbidden even to the keepers of history. It was not erased because it was forgotten. It was erased to protect the galaxy from what would happen if humans remembered who they are. A murmur passed through the council seats. Counselor Jarek scoffed, though his tail twitched in a nervous rhythm. "Stories meant to frighten children," he said. "This is a word, nothing more." The archivist's deep eyes turned on him. "Then why does the chamber hear it? Why do the walls answer?" As if to prove his point, the crystal panels shivered with a faint glow, responding to the vibration of the name still lingering in the air. The lights pulsed slowly, like a sleeping creature's breath. "What is happening to the chamber?" asked Counselor Aurel, his glowing form flickering faster than before. The High Speaker's hands moved quickly over the control panel, but the systems no longer obeyed. "The crystal is reacting to the sound. It remembers it too." Lyra swallowed hard. "It was just a whisper." The archivist shook his head. "The name needs only to be spoken once. It carries its own path. It finds its way through stone, through stars, through the minds of those who once knew it." The sound in the floor grew louder, almost like distant drums. Counselor Vera, a being covered in metallic feathers, leaned forward with a tense expression. "I have heard something like this once before," she said. "It was on a dead world, a ruin where even machines had turned to dust. We entered, a hall filled with carvings of strange warriors. They were human, I think. The air felt heavy, like now. Then, the ground shook, and we left." The High Speaker's voice cut through the murmurs. This is not a legend anymore. We have confirmed. The translation. The name matches old battle records from before the First War. Records that tell of fleets the size of continents and weapons that could erase suns. A low hiss spread among the seats. Some counselors whispered to each other in their own languages. But no one suggested leaving. They were locked in now, not just by the sealed doors, but by the weight of the moment. Counselor Jarek still resisted. Even if this is true, humans today are not the same. They are weaker now, scattered, unaware. They could not be what they were before. The archivist turned slowly toward him. You misunderstand. The name is not for the humans of today. It is for the humans who never died. Lyra's breath caught. Never died? There are soldiers, the archivist said, hidden in the dark between the stars, sleeping, waiting, guarding what was left behind. They do not breathe, they do not age, but they will wake when they hear the name. Jarek laughed, but it was a nervous sound. If they exist, they would have come for us long ago. They could not hear us, the archivist replied. Until now. The lights above flickered again, brighter this time. The hum in the floor was joined by a distant rumble, as if something massive was moving closer. The high speaker turned to the guards at the doors. Double the seal. No transmissions, no signals in or out. If that word escapes beyond this chamber, it will not be only us who pay the price. The guards moved quickly, locking the final barriers. But deep in the walls, a faint shimmer appeared, small threads of light crawling along the crystal like veins. Counselor Errol stared at them. What is that? It is the name traveling, the archivist said quietly. It does not need ships or messengers. It moves through what humans once built. The high speaker frowned. The humans built this chamber's foundation. But that was before. He stopped. The thought was too dangerous to finish. Lyra, her voice unsteady, asked, what happens when it reaches them? The archivist closed his eyes. They will come. No one spoke after that. The only sound was the slow, steady heartbeat of the name moving through the walls, crossing the stars, searching for ears that would understand. Outside, in the cold darkness, something heard it, and it began to wake. The council chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the crystal archives at the center of the great table where the galaxy's leaders sat. Holographic maps and old star charts floated in the air, all circling around. A single glowing symbol. The same word that had appeared when Lyra's voice had spoken it hours before. The high speaker's expression was unreadable, but the tension in his tone was clear. He spoke slowly, as if weighing each word. What you are looking at is not a code or a location. It is a name. The name that Earth once carried before it, entered the Council, before humans shared even a fraction of their history with us. It is the name given to them by those who first found them, those older than our oldest archives. And this name is not a mere title. It is a mark of belonging, a chain of loyalty forged in an age when the stars themselves were young. Murmurs filled the air, some voices confused, others afraid. A counselor from the Kvari Alliance raised a clawed hand. We have known Earth for hundreds of cycles. They have been a minor power until recently. Why hide such a thing? The high speaker's eyes were cold. Because the truth of this name carries consequences. In the earliest records erased from the public eye, Earth was not weak. They commanded fleets that could cross the void without using the gates, soldiers that could fight for days without rest, and weapons that made entire worlds surrender without a single shot fired. But they did not rule openly. They served something greater, something that named them and gave them purpose. That name you see before you is how they are called back. The insectoid representative tilted his head, his antenna twitching. Called back? To what? The archivist, a thin figure draped in silver cloth, stepped forward. to war, or to obedience. We do not know which. But the last time that name was spoken, the galaxy changed. Borders vanished, leaders fell, and 3 great civilizations were erased in less than a single rotation. None of our histories record their attackers by face or flag. They record only a shadow that came when Earth moved at the call of that name. Lyra sat stiff in her chair, her heart pounding. She wanted to speak, to say she had found it by accident while restoring damaged files, that she hadn't known what it meant, but some part of her feared drawing attention to herself. She could feel the archivist's gaze flicker toward her, for the briefest second, as if he already knew the truth. The reptilian counselor Jarek leaned forward, his scales catching the dim light. If such power still exists, we should use it. Call them. Force them to stand with us before the enemies at our borders grow too bold. The High Speaker's voice hardened. You cannot force them, and if they come, they will not stand with us. They will stand where they are told by the one they serve. That one is not this council. A cold silence spread. The meaning was clear. Earth was bound to something beyond the council's reach, something older and more dangerous than any alliance they knew. Across the chamber, the crystal archive pulsed again, the words glow brightening for a moment. The archivist turned toward the High Speaker. If the signal was sent when the name was spoken, then they may already be coming. The thought seemed to chill the room. No one spoke for a long moment. Then the insectoid representative broke the quiet. Perhaps they will come as friends. The archivist shook his head slowly. Perhaps. Or perhaps they will come as they did before, silent and without warning, and we will know their will only when we see whose worlds still burn. Lyra's hands tightened on the edge of her seat. Her mind replayed the moment she had read the name aloud in the empty archive room. It had felt harmless then, just another line in a damaged record. Now it felt like she had opened a door she could never close. And somewhere far beyond council space, in a region of darkness uncharted by their maps, engines long dormant stirred to life. A fleet, hidden for centuries, began to turn toward the stars they once knew. They had heard their name, and they were answering. On Earth, the skies were calm and blue, and no one knew that far above them, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were arguing over a name. In the busy streets of Cairo, tourists moved through the crowded marketplace, buying colorful fabrics and shining brass lamps, unaware that their world had just been touched by something ancient. In a small excavation site on the edge of the city, Dr. Karim Abbas knelt beside a half-buried stone tablet, brushing away the dust with slow, careful strokes. He had been working on this dig for weeks, chasing rumors of a pre-dynastic ruin, older than any known Egyptian civilization. Today, his hands froze when his brush revealed sharp, curling symbols unlike anything he had seen before. They were not hieroglyphs, not cuneiform, not any script in the human record. The markings twisted and seemed to shift when the sunlight hit them, almost alive. Karim's assistant, a young student named Layla, leaned over his shoulder. "What language is that?" she asked. Karim shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but I feel like I've seen it before." He didn't know why he said that. He had never seen anything like it in his life. Yet the shapes tugged at something deep in his mind, something buried in dreams. Layla pointed to the largest symbol, carved deeper than the rest. "This one feels important." Karim reached out, tracing the groove with his fingers. A strange warmth spread into his skin. Without thinking, he whispered the sound the carving seemed to suggest. The air around them shifted instantly. The breeze stopped. The distant sound of the marketplace faded until there was nothing. No wind, no voices, only silence. Layla stepped back, eyes wide. "What did you just say?" Karim looked at her, confused. I don't know. It just came to me." The ground beneath them gave a faint shudder. From the corner of the site, one of the older workers shouted that his radio had gone dead. Across the city, unnoticed. By most, every bird in the sky turned sharply to the east and began flying in the same direction. In orbit, satellites registered a brief spike in unknown frequency emissions from the dig site, a pulse that lasted less than a second but reached beyond the solar system. Kareem felt his chest tighten, as if invisible eyes had turned toward him from somewhere very, very far away. That night, he could not sleep. His dreams were filled with flashes of strange places, battlefields under black skies, oceans lit with fire, and towering ships that blotted out the stars. He saw men and women in armor unlike any in history, their eyes glowing faintly, moving in perfect formation. When he woke, his hands were trembling, and the sound of that strange word was still on his lips. Meanwhile, across the ocean in a quiet town in Alaska, a fisherman named Daniel Price woke in the middle of the night, gasping for breath. He had heard a word in his sleep, loud and clear, and the moment he heard it, the world around him seemed to tilt. He stumbled outside, heart racing, and looked up at the northern sky. The aurora was brighter than he had ever seen it, but woven into the green light was a pattern, symbols that pulsed faintly before fading into the darkness. In a hidden lab deep under the mountains of Chile, an old radio telescope operator frowned at his screen. The system had just detected a repeating signal in an unknown format. At first he thought it was random noise, but when he adjusted the filters, the data formed a perfect match to a forbidden symbol buried in an ancient archive, a symbol tied to Earth's earliest myths. The signal wasn't coming from space. It was coming from Earth itself. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the archivist of Myra stiffened. His eyes closed as if listening to something the others could not hear. "It has begun," he said. The high speaker's voice was tense. "What has begun?" The archivist opened his eyes slowly. "The humans are hearing the name in their dreams. The ones who carry the old blood will understand it first. Then they will remember." The counselors exchanged worried glances. They all knew what came after remembrance. On Earth, Kareem returned to the dig site the next day, only to find the military had arrived. Soldiers in unmarked uniforms were securing the area, and the tablet had been removed. A man in a black suit approached Kareem and asked him to come with them. No explanation, no choice. As they drove away from the city, Kareem noticed that the driver kept glancing nervously at the sky. That night, in a secure underground facility, Kareem stood before the same stone tablet. Around it, men and women in lab coats and military uniforms spoke in low voices, some looking frightened. A senior officer approached him. "Dr. Abbas, you spoke the word, didn't you?" Kareem hesitated. "How do you know?" The officer didn't answer directly. "Because we've been watching for this. We've been waiting." Kareem's mouth went dry. "Waiting for what?" The officer's expression was grim. "For the call to go out. And now, it has." The pulse left Earth in less than a heartbeat, moving faster than light through channels no ship could follow. It spread like a ripple through invisible threads, woven long before the Council even existed. On the edge of the Orion Arm, deep inside a hollow asteroid that had been silent for thousands of years, ancient machines stirred. One by one, their black metal eyes opened, glowing faint blue, and a sound like a heartbeat filled the empty cavern. Massive armored shapes emerged from hidden vaults, their surfaces covered in human markings worn smooth by time. They were ships, warships the size of cities, dormant since the end of the First Galactic War. Farther out, in the dark between galaxies, a lone station floated around a dead star. Inside, skeletal guardians stood unmoving, their armor fused into the walls. When the pulse reached them, their heads turned in perfect unison. A single voice, deep and human, spoke into the silence. "Confirmed." The name has been spoken. The station's engines, cold for eons, roared back to life. Across the galaxy, old human outposts, long thought abandoned, began to glow. On the icy moon of Trask, an alien mining crew fled in terror as the ground split open, revealing a buried hangar. From within, black triangular craft rose into the thin atmosphere, their hulls humming with ancient power. In the council chamber, the archivist of Myra trembled for the first time in centuries. He did not need a scanner to know what was happening. "The fleets are waking," he whispered. The high speaker turned to the counselors. "We must contain this before it spreads further." But even as he spoke, the walls of the chamber flickered again, showing images from distant sectors, beacons flaring to life, transmitting the same word over and over in every human tongue. Kareem, still held in the underground facility, was led into a control room where giant screens displayed the same strange symbol he had seen on the tablet. "That," a technician said, pointing, "is now being broadcast from over 300 locations across the galaxy, locations we didn't even know existed." Kareem stared at the map of lights spreading outward like a disease. "What happens when it reaches all of them?" The officer beside him answered flatly. "Then they come home." On the outer rim of the galaxy, a derelict human supercarrier the size of a small continent began to move, its hull breaking through layers of frozen rock. Entire ecosystems of alien creatures scattered as its engines lit, flooding the void with light. The ship's AI, silent for millennia, calculated a jump route directly to Sol, the human home system. In the middle of an asteroid belt in another sector, hundreds of smaller warships lifted from their resting places and formed into perfect formations without a single word exchanged. They moved as if guided by one mind, turning toward the same, distant star. The pulse traveled farther still, reaching an ancient relay hidden inside the black hole at the center of the galaxy. The relay opened channels that had been locked for ages, linking human fleets scattered across unknown space. In a distant part of the universe, where even light took eons to travel, a fleet commander awoke from cryosleep. His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the darkness. "The call has come," he said, and his crew began to move, their bodies unnaturally strong, their movements inhumanly precise. Back in the council chamber, panic broke. Some demanded that Earth be destroyed immediately to cut off the signal. Others argued that any attack would only accelerate human awakening. The archivist silenced them all. "You do not understand. This is not something you can stop. This is something you survive, if you are lucky." On Earth, strange weather patterns began to appear. Massive storm systems forming without warning, lightning storms over oceans where no storms should be. Satellites picked up faint structures forming in low orbit, as if invisible ships were taking shape just beyond the visible spectrum. Kareem watched the data coming in, a pit forming in his stomach. "They're already here, aren't they?" The officer nodded grimly. "Some never left." In the icy depths of Antarctica, far beneath the ice sheets, a hidden vault opened, for the first time in human memory. From within, a massive cylindrical object rose slowly, breaking the surface in a burst of steam and ice. Its surface glowed faintly with the same twisting symbols as the tablet. The object sent out a low hum that traveled through the oceans, reaching every coastline. In every major city, a small number of people stopped what they were doing, as if hearing something far away. Some smiled. Some wept. All of them whispered the same word. Far above, in the cold reaches of space, fleets that had been waiting in silence for thousands of years turned their bows toward Earth, engines burning, brighter than the stars themselves. The council chamber was no longer calm. Voices overlapped in a storm of fear, some shouting for immediate military action, others demanding total lockdown of all space lanes leading to Earth. The high speaker tried to restore order, but the air was thick with panic. Then, without warning, the crystal walls surrounding them flickered and went dark. A moment later, a figure appeared. Tall, human, wearing armor black as the void. His eyes glowed faint gold, and his voice was calm, steady, but carried the weight of centuries. "If you are hearing this," the figure said, "then the name has been spoken." Every counselor froze. "You do not know me, but I know you. I know your worlds, your fleets, your history. We were there when it began. We were there when it ended. And if this message has reached you, then it means we will be there again." The figure stepped forward, the faint light of distant stars, reflecting off his armor. "We are the firstborn of Earth. Long before your council existed, long before your worlds learned the meaning of war, we walked among the stars. We fought, we conquered, and when the cost grew too high, we disappeared. Not in defeat, but by choice. We locked away our name so that you could live free of it. But now, you have called us back." On the far side of the chamber, the archivist lowered his head. He had seen this message before, in forbidden archives buried so deep most thought they were myths. The figure's eyes swept the council members. "You fear us. You should. We are not your enemy unless you make us one. But understand this. When we return, we do not ask for permission. We do not ask for trust. We come for what is ours." The image shifted, showing fleets of black warships moving in formation through a sea of stars. Each ship dwarfed the largest, vessels the council possessed, their hulls covered in symbols older than most known civilizations. "We will protect Earth," the voice continued, "and any who stand beside her. But those who stand against her will be removed, swiftly and without hesitation. The galaxy will remember the cost of challenging the firstborn." In the underground facility on Earth, Kareem watched the same transmission appear on the screens. The officers around him stood stiff, their faces pale. "This isn't live," one of them whispered. "This was recorded thousands of years ago." Kareem felt a cold weight in his chest. Then they knew this would happen. "The message," continued, the human figure's voice growing even heavier. "We are not coming to destroy but to restore. The worlds we seeded, the stations we built, the fleets we left in the dark, they will answer to us once more. To the Council of Worlds, hear this. Do not stand in our way." The figure stopped, his head tilting slightly as if listening to something far away. "They are already waking," he said softly. "Some are closer than you think." With that, the transmission ended, and the chamber lights returned. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The silence was worse than the shouting from before. Then Jarek slammed his clawed hand on the table. "We cannot allow them to gather strength. We strike now, before they arrive." Counselor Vera's feathers bristled. "Strike with what? Against fleets that outnumber and outgun us in every way. Even if we united every warship in the galaxy, we could not match them." The High Speaker's gaze turned to the archivist. "You have seen this before. Tell us what happens next." The archivist's voice was quiet, but carried to every corner of the chamber. "What happens next is not war. Not yet. First, they come to claim their own. They will awaken the hidden stations, the sleeping soldiers, the buried vaults. They will rebuild what was left behind, and when they are ready, they will decide the fate of the Council." On Earth, the storm systems that had formed days earlier now glowed faintly at their centers, as if lightning was trapped in slow motion. Strange metallic structures began rising from the oceans, their surfaces gleaming with the same ancient symbols. Civilian satellites captured blurry images of massive shapes entering the atmosphere, shapes too large to be aircraft, moving silently, vanishing into clouds. Kareem stood on a balcony that night, looking at the strange lights above. He could feel something in his chest, like the echo of a distant drumbeat. He didn't know it yet, but the name had marked him. Somewhere far above, in the darkness of space, a voice spoke quietly to no one and to everyone at once. "The firstborn are coming home?" The council chamber was locked, its doors sealed with the highest security codes, guarded by soldiers. From 5 different species, yet every member felt the same cold unease crawling down their spines. The High Speaker was in mid-sentence, trying to rally the council into forming a unified plan, when the air in the center of the chamber seemed to bend. At first it looked like heat distortion, a faint shimmer in the shape of a human silhouette, but then it solidified, and a figure stepped forward from nothing. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing black armor that reflected the crystal light like liquid shadow. His helmet retracted with a hiss, revealing a human face, calm, expressionless, with pale eyes that seemed to look straight through everyone in the room. No alarms had gone off, no doors had opened, yet he was here. The guards reacted instantly, raising their weapons, but the High Speaker held up a trembling hand to stop them. The man's voice was deep and steady. "I am Sentinel Aegis, firstborn of Earth." He spoke the council's common language perfectly, but each member also heard his words in their own native tongue at the exact same moment. Who spoke the name? The room was silent. His gaze swept the circle of seats, lingering on each counselor just long enough to make them shift uncomfortably. When no one answered, his eyes locked on Lyra. She froze, her pulse hammering in, her ears. "You," he said simply, without anger, without accusation, only certainty. "You woke us." Lyra's mouth went dry. "I didn't mean to." He raised a hand, and the room fell silent again. "Meaning does not matter." The name was spoken. "The fleets are awake. The call has gone out." Counselor Jarek leaned forward, his claws tapping against the desk. "If you think the Council will simply allow your fleets to march across the galaxy, you are mistaken. We will defend ourselves." Aegis turned his pale eyes on him. "Defend yourselves? From what? We have not attacked you. We have not taken from you. But if you strike first, you will not survive the reply." His words were not shouted, yet the weight of them made Jarek's scales flatten against his skull. The High Speaker tried to keep his voice calm. "Why are you here?" Aegis stepped forward slowly, his armored boots silent on the crystal floor. "I am here to warn you. The firstborn will come to reclaim what was left behind. This is not a negotiation. It is a statement of fact. Stand aside, and you will be untouched. Stand in the way, and you will be removed." The archivist spoke for the first time since the figure appeared. "There are whispers that not all who bear your name are loyal to Earth, that some may have their own designs." Aegis's gaze sharpened. "Those whispers are true. We will deal with them, but you will not. This is our war to settle." Behind him, the air shimmered again, and for a fraction of a second, the counselors saw a massive shadow, a shape far too large to fit in the chamber, as if a warship hung just beyond the thin layer of reality that separated them from open space. Then it was gone. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons, but none dared move. "This is only the first contact," Aegis said. "Others will follow. When we arrive in force, you will see the difference between humans you know and the firstborn." He turned, as if preparing to leave, then paused and looked directly at the High Speaker. "Your council has survived for a long time because you believed you were the strongest. That time is over." His helmet slid back into place, sealing, with a soft hiss. "When the firstborn return in full, the galaxy will change. Decide now whether you wish to stand on the side of the living, or be remembered only in history." Without another word, his form shimmered and dissolved, vanishing into thin air as if he had never been there. The chamber erupted into chaos, counselors shouting over each other, some demanding immediate war preparations, others insisting on negotiation, and a few already planning to swear allegiance to Earth. The High Speaker sat back in his seat, his hands clasped tightly, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on him. He had been in power for centuries, had faced crises and wars that shook the stars, but for the first time in his long life, he felt something close to fear. Somewhere far away, beyond the Council's reach, massive human fleets were still waking, engines burning, weapons priming, answering the call of a single word spoken in a chamber that was supposed to be sealed from the galaxy. And now, one of their commanders had walked into the heart of the Council without opening a door. The council chamber was still buzzing with noise hours after Sentinel Aegis vanished, but beneath the shouting there was something heavier, a silent agreement that whatever Earth's true name meant, it was far more dangerous than any of them had believed. The High Speaker called for order, his voice echoing sharply against the crystal walls until the last voice fell quiet. "You all saw what happened," he said, his tone grim. "He came here without opening a door, without breaking a seal, without setting off a single alarm. If one man can do this, imagine what an entire fleet can do." The archivist stepped forward, holding an ancient data plate so old its edges had worn smooth. "I was ordered to destroy this record centuries ago," he said, "but I kept it. I suspected one day we would face this." He placed it on the table and activated it. A projection appeared in the center of the room, showing strange human symbols linked to what looked like vast machinery. The image shifted to reveal an enormous black structure floating in space, its size dwarfing planets, its shape like a massive ring. "This," the archivist said, "is one of the keys. They are not weapons in themselves. They are command nodes. Each one is tied to a fleet, a station, or an army that responds to a single trigger, Earth's true name." A murmur went through the counselors. "You mean the word is a code?" Counselor Vera asked. "Not just a code," the archivist replied. "It is a living key. It does not simply unlock, it awakens, it directs, it commands. To speak it is to take control of the most powerful forces the humans ever built." Counselor Jarek's scales rippled uneasily. "Then why haven't they used it themselves until now?" The archivist's expression darkened. "Because they feared what would happen if they did. They buried it, erased it, and hid it in places no one was meant to find. But now that it has been spoken, every one of their ancient war machines is answering the call." The projection changed, showing flashes of giant constructs emerging from asteroid fields, colossal ships forming lines around stars, soldiers in strange black armor stepping out of cryo-sleep. "These are not ordinary soldiers," the archivist continued. "They are firstborn units, enhanced humans created for war, stronger and faster than any living being in this chamber. They do not tire, they do not hesitate, and they follow orders without question. The name binds them all, no matter how far away they are." The High Speaker leaned forward. "Are you saying the one who speaks the name controls them?" The archivist shook his head. "Not exactly. The name connects them to Earth, to their true leaders. Whoever holds Earth's heart, its command structure, controls the firstborn." Lyra, who had been silent since Aegis left, finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I said the name, but I do not feel in control of anything." The archivist turned to her. "Because you are not of Earth. The word passed through you, but it was not yours to hold. It has already found its way to the rightful source." "The humans," the High Speaker said, his face hardening. "Exactly," the archivist replied. "And that means they are waking to a power that even they may not fully understand anymore." Counselor Vera's metallic feathers rattled nervously. "If this is true, Then the moment they gain full control, they will not need permission or diplomacy. They can simply take. The projection shifted again, this time showing a simulation of firstborn fleets moving through the galaxy, bypassing defenses as if they were nothing, striking key worlds in hours instead of weeks. "We cannot match them," the archivist said bluntly. "Not with ships, not with weapons, not even with numbers. The only thing that could stand against the firstborn is the firstborn." The chamber went silent. The high speaker's voice dropped low. "Then our only hope is to divide them before they unite." Jarek leaned forward, sensing the danger in the words. "You mean turn them against each other?" "If possible," the high speaker said. "There are those who may have drifted from Earth's command over the centuries. If we can find them, perhaps they will side with us to keep the others in check." The archivist shook his head slowly. "You are playing with forces, you do. Not understand. If you provoke them, even the ones who might have stood aside will see you as a threat." But the high speaker was already giving orders to his aides, whispering about covert missions to locate rogue firstborn fleets. Far away, in the cold void between systems, those fleets were already moving. Some toward Earth, some toward unknown. Coordinates, their intentions hidden. And somewhere among them, leaders were deciding whether to return under Earth's banner or seize the name's power for themselves. The council thought they had time to act, but the truth was simple. The moment the name was spoken, the countdown had begun. The council chamber was dim, the crystal walls set to absorb rather than reflect light, giving the impression that the room itself was holding its breath. Every seat was filled, every counselor in attendance, for this was the meeting that would decide the galaxy's stance toward Earth and the firstborn. The high speaker stood at the center, his expression carved. From stone, his voice sharp enough to cut through the heavy air. "We stand at a moment that will decide whether our people live or vanish into history. We must choose our path now." Around him, the counselors murmured, some anxious, others visibly angry. Counselor Jarek was the first to speak, slamming his clawed hand against the table. "There is no path but war. If we bow now, we lose our freedom forever. The firstborn will not stop with their fleets. They will take our worlds, our resources, our people." Across from him, Counselor Vera spread her metallic wings slightly, a gesture of controlled disagreement. "You are assuming their goal is conquest, but Aegis said they would not harm us if we stand aside. This may be the only chance to avoid destruction without spilling blood." Several others nodded, but Jarek snarled. "You believe the words of a man who walked into this chamber like a shadow. You trust a people who hide fleets older than our civilizations?" The archivist raised his voice, his calm tone cutting through their anger. "Both of you speak truths, but remember, these fleets are not just weapons. They are bound to Earth's will. We must ask ourselves not whether the firstborn are dangerous, but whether the ones controlling them will ever allow us to remain independent." That question hung in the air like a dark star no one wanted to orbit. Lyra shifted in her seat, the weight of her own guilt pressing down on her shoulders. She had not intended to trigger any of this, yet here they were, the galaxy debating war because of a word she had spoken. The high speaker gestured to the chamber's central display, which lit up with two stark symbols, one for war, one for alliance. "We will vote. But before you cast your decision, understand this. Whichever path we choose, there will be no turning back. The firstborn will know, and they will respond." Counselor Vera spoke again, her voice lower now but filled with urgency. "If we choose war, we may face annihilation before we can even mobilize. If we choose alliance, we can learn from them, perhaps gain their trust. And if that fails, we will have time to prepare." Jarek's claws scraped the table. "Time? To prepare for what? To watch them grow stronger while we do nothing? No. Every moment we wait is another moment their fleets position themselves to strike. The archivist interjected, his eyes narrowing. And what if you strike first and only unite them against you? A divided enemy can be reasoned with or played against itself. An enemy united by your aggression will destroy you without hesitation. The High Speaker looked at each face in the chamber. Cast your votes. One by one, counselors touched the glowing surface before them. The votes tallied in real time, the two symbols on the display shifting in brightness as the numbers rose. At first, Alliance surged ahead, fear of immediate destruction pushing many toward the safer-seeming choice. But as the minutes passed, war began to catch up, fueled by those unwilling to surrender even a fraction of sovereignty. When the last vote was cast, the results glowed in the center of the room, a narrow margin, Alliance winning by only 2 votes. The chamber erupted into noise, some shouting in relief, others in outrage. Jarek stood abruptly, pointing a clawed finger toward the High Speaker. You've doomed us all. When they come, remember this day. Vera rose as well, her wings flaring in anger. You would have started a war we could not win. This gives us a chance to survive. But even as they argued, something else was already happening. The High Speaker's personal communicator pulsed with a private message, the encryption deep and unfamiliar. He glanced at it and froze. The sender was not from any council-recognized channel. It bore a seal, black, ringed with silver, the mark Aegis had worn on his armor. The message was short, only a few words. You have chosen wisely. We are watching. His grip tightened on the device. This meant the Firstborn had intercepted their vote, perhaps even before it was complete. Across the chamber, Lyra's own communicator vibrated. Her message was different. You are not safe here. Contact will come soon. Do not trust all who smile at you. She felt her heart pound, scanning the faces around her, wondering who in this room was already speaking to the Firstborn. The High Speaker called for order again, promising that official envoys would be sent to open negotiations with Earth's leadership. But in the shadows, plans were already moving. Those who had voted for war were reaching out to their own networks, searching for the rumored rogue Firstborn. Beyond the edge of charted space, in a region so dark that even starlight seemed reluctant to pass, a vast armada lay hidden. The ships were unlike anything the Council's intelligence archives had ever recorded. Sleek black hulls that drank in light, moving in complete silence. They were Firstborn, but they did not carry the markings of Earth's central command. Instead, their insignia was jagged, fractured, like a broken crown. On the bridge of the largest vessel, a figure stood before a panoramic view of the void, her eyes glowing faintly with silver light. This was Commander Sarah Kale, one of the oldest surviving Firstborn, a warrior who had walked away from Earth's rule centuries ago. She had built her fleet from the remnants of abandoned war projects, recruiting others who no longer wished to serve under the name that bound them. Now, reports had reached her. Earth's true name had been spoken. That name still echoed faintly in her mind, stirring memories she had tried to bury. Sarah turned to her second-in-command, a tall soldier whose face was hidden behind a smooth black visor. Earth has awakened its leash, she said quietly, but that leash does not fit us anymore. Her second-in-command tilted his head. Then they will come for us. Sarah smiled faintly. Let them. We have not spent these centuries in silence for nothing. She gestured to the tactical display. Thousands of ships flickered onto the holographic map stretching across several sectors. We move before they do. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, the High Speaker had just received an urgent intelligence report. A scout ship had picked up faint energy signatures in the uncharted region beyond the Veil Nebula, signatures far too organized to be natural. The archivist studied the data, his face growing pale. This is them, he whispered. The rogue firstborn. The ones I warned you about. Jarek leaned forward, his claws tapping impatiently. If they are not under Earth's control, then they are our chance. The High Speaker's voice was sharp. Or our destruction. We do not know their allegiance. Lyra listened in silence, but her thoughts were racing. The message she had received after the vote now made more sense. Someone wanted her to know she was in danger. Could it be from these rogue firstborn? Far across the void, Sarah was already preparing her first move. Her fleet began to shift, not toward Earth, but toward a strategic cluster of unclaimed systems rich in resources. These worlds were unprotected, caught between Council space and the edges of the firstborn network. If she took them quickly, she would have a foothold to bargain or to wage war. Her ships moved like shadows, each jump precise, each signal masked. Back in Council space, whispers spread through the political corridors. Some councilors argued for reaching out to Sarah before Earth's forces arrived, believing that a divided firstborn was the galaxy's only chance. Others feared that contact would provoke both factions, trapping the Council between two unstoppable armies. In the middle of these debates, Lyra was approached by a stranger in the Council's grand library. The figure wore plain robes, their face half hidden, but when they spoke, their voice carried the same subtle resonance she had heard in Aegis. "You are being watched," the stranger said. "Not just by Earth's firstborn, by the ones who left." Lyra's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" The stranger leaned closer. "A messenger, and if you wish to survive, you will come with me." She hesitated, glancing around, but the library was nearly empty. Against her better judgment, she followed. The messenger led her through service corridors, down into the docking levels beneath the Council hall. There, a small ship waited, its hull black and featureless. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To meet the ones who can decide whether this galaxy burns or not," the messenger replied. Hours later, Lyra found herself aboard one of Sarah's command ships, staring at the woman whose presence seemed to fill the entire room. Sarah studied her in silence for a long moment before speaking. "So you are the one who spoke the name," she said. It was not a question. Lyra nodded, feeling small under that gaze. "I didn't know what it meant," she said. "I didn't know it would—" She stopped, unable to find the words. Sarah stepped closer. "You woke something that cannot be put back to sleep. Earth will call, and those bound to them will answer. But we will not." Lyra swallowed. "Then you could help us stop them." Sarah's smile was cold. "We could. But why should we?" Before Lyra could answer, alarms sounded through the ship. A fleet had been detected on approach, Earth's firstborn, moving fast. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "They've found us sooner than I expected." She turned to her officers. "Battle stations. Let them see that we are not prey." In Council space, the High Speaker's console lit with urgent alerts. Two massive fleets were on an intercept course, far from any inhabited world. The galaxy was about to witness the first clash of firstborn against firstborn in thousands of years. The choice the Council had made, to ally with Earth, was already being tested, and none of them knew whether they had chosen the side that would win.